ومعنا الحديث الآن حول الأسواق الأمريكية سانديب شارما رئيس وحدة الاستثمار في سنتكس كابيتال. سانديب أهلا بك معنا. يعني رالي كان بالفعل كبير بالنسبة للأسهم الأمريكية. نتحدث عن بضعة أيام شهدنا فيها ارتفاعات يعني تجاوزت حتى 5%، ولكن تراجعات شهدناها يوم قبل أمس، اليوم أيضا بعد التراجعات على S&P 500. هل تعتقد بأن هذا الثور الصاعد بدأ يتعب؟
Well, always a pleasure to be on your show, and it's a very good question. I think there is a lot of animal spirits about the possibility of the outcome of the election, and in my last interview, I noted that the markets are pricing in not only a victory for presidency for Mr. Trump, but also a clean sweep for the Republicans, and that is a very important condition for the market rally to continue, as we know that is exactly what has happened. So it is not surprising that the markets have taken a very positive view. However, we think that the markets are very extended at this point in time and probably due for a good breather. There is a good analogy to looking at somewhat of a similar time frame going back to 1980 when we had a one-term president, we had high inflation, and there was a lot of expectation of a new president coming in with a positive growth agenda. And the market rallied into the election, but subsequently had a very difficult time, even though there was a very positive outlook for growth going into 1981. So I think we're somewhat similarly set up right now with inflation concerns, change in the direction of the country, change in economic policies, and a new president with a growth agenda. But I think they're going to have to take the pain in the front part of their presidency, which will probably cause some concerns going between now and maybe the first part of next year.
شهدنا الضغوط على الأسهم الأوروبية مع نوع من الروتيشن، تخارج من الأسهم الأوروبية ودخول إلى الأسهم الأمريكية للاستفادة من سياسة أمريكا فيرست. هل تتوقع بأنه بمرحلة ما ستصل التقييمات لمناطق جدا مغرية بالنسبة للأسهم الأوروبية وسنبدأ ونشهد عودة الانفلوز لأوروبا للأسهم الأوروبية؟
I do believe that. I think a lot of European equity, especially European industrials, and many of whom are multinational, derive revenues overseas, should do quite well. And also we should point out that the euro has fared very poorly, which has caused a rotation out as the 10-year treasuries have gone up a lot. It's pulled a lot of capital out of Europe. And the answer to that question will really depend on whether or not Europeans respond with a positive agenda for growth for their own economies, or they continue to cling to their current legacy position of maintaining the policies they have. And if it's the latter, then I think that poses a lot of problems for Europe. However, I'm hopeful that this change in direction in the US is going to promote a change in direction in Europe as well. And we can see that change is probably about to come in Germany with the calling of early elections. So that is very important. And as you know, in France, they instituted a 20% tax on the largest corporations in France, which is a very detrimental step. And I hope that they will look at it and reverse their position and go back to taking out the entitlements in Europe as well. If that's the case, I think Europe could do quite well as well, regardless of the bluster about tariffs and all the hard-nosed approach here. I think Europe can do well, but it's a precondition for them to change their direction.
سانديب، من بدأ يدخل خلال الأيام القليلة الماضية all in على الكريبتو، على البيتكوين، الأسهم أيضا الكريبتو، هل تحبذ اليوم هذه المخاطرة أم تراها قد تكون يعني فيها ريسك مرتفع جدا؟
I think it is a high risk, high reward, and they were benefited by not only the election outcome or possibility of this election outcome, but also the Federal Reserve has made it easy for them And that, I think, is a very difficult conversation because the Fed cut by 50 basis points as the first cut while citing that the economy is strong, which made no sense. And now they've cut once more and probably are going to cut again in December. So the combination of that event plus the favorable outcome and outlook for potential growth has really brought in the animal spirits. And the people who've taken the risk, they've been well rewarded. However, I think that has caused a significant amount of undervaluation in the rest of the more desirable areas. So I think those areas can still do well, and those areas would be areas in probably in energy, in materials, in metals, and also in the industrials going into possibly next year and maybe for a multi-year cycle.
سنديب شرما رئيس وحدة الاستثمار في سنتكس كابيتال، شكرا جزيلا لك.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.